therapist in private practice and is an organizational psychologist specializing in transforming oppressive structures into new collaborative cultural norms. Combining her training in psychology, systems, healing, and education, her work focuses on healing rifts, building relationships, and empowering people, one word at a time. Her presentations integrate a special blend of humor and wisdom, I agree, openness and honesty, and a deep generosity of self and spirit. Please welcome Dr. Yvette Erasmus.
Good morning. Thank you. It's so nice to be here with you this morning and to look around the room and see a lovely mixture of people that I know and people that I don't know. So welcome if you're here for the first time. We are in March, and I believe that the theme for March is the illusion of control. So that is what we will be discussing today. I don't think that there's much I can tell you that you don't already know, so I think I'm just going to probably tell you a bunch of stories and help you remember what you already know about the fact that control is an illusion. Are we all in agreement on that as a starting place? Okay. So we already know it's an illusion, and so what do we replace control with? What do you think? What do you replace control with? Yes? Bad choices? Either we have control or we have bad choices. Okay. What else? Yes. Dancing with emergence. Lovely. And I'm imagining you mean that literally, metaphorically, symbolically, at all layers. Yes, yes. What a lovely idea, this idea of emergence, right next to bad choices, which we can explore that tension in a moment. Anything else? Yes. Radical acceptance. Absolutely. Radical acceptance. Yes. Flexibility. A list of preferences. Getting very, very clear on our preferences. Yes. Yes. And having a long list of them. And when you use the word preferences, it's like, it's this very lovely little line of not being attached to an outcome, but really knowing what I'm preferring, knowing where I stand in relationship to the choices I have. Yes?
I found that if I know that what I'm needing, I don't have to follow the illusion of control. So if I need reassurance or safety or predictability, that loosens the idea of control because I can get certain needs met. And it seems like it's control, but really it's just like finding my homeostasis.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, as you get more grounded in knowing what it is that you're needing to build on the idea of preferences, you find that there's more ability for emergence of things to come in to meet those needs. Am I saying it right? In the way that you mean it? Yeah. And you don't have to hold so tightly onto controlling exactly how that's going to happen. I love that. Yes? Yeah. So when we start moving away from control, we begin replacing it with connection, community, other people. What am I missing from what you said? Inner connection. That degree of self-connection. Yeah. So there's a lot of themes in what I'm hearing that I'm just going to summarize for you in this journey from control to connection. Is the journey of being externally focused to being interiorly focused. It's from having your attention on all of the things that you cannot control, hijacking how you're positioning yourself in life, to reclaiming and reconnecting with your interiority in a way that you have internal control, focus, connection, power. And you live from a space of interior out, inside out, instead of constantly feeling like you're living from the outside in. Does that make sense to people? Do you have any questions or comments on that? Anybody want to say more about that? You already know I like more interactive sessions anyway, so. Okay. So, what makes it so difficult then? I mean, we all know this. We all seem to have, at least in this room, this understanding that we want to move away, we want to release control, and we want to move into connection. But then, who brought up the idea of bad choices a moment ago? Yes. Do you want to say more about when you let go of control, bad choices? Any more you want to share about that?
No, I think it's just choosing to replace things with better choices. It's difficult. Sometimes we go to the easy things. It's something to blame or whatever. Why couldn't you this or that? Well, I made this bad choice on something.
100%. 100%. This idea of blaming the externals is very, very entrenched in our programming, in our cultural conditioning, in the way that we live. And the more that we put our focus on everything out there, the more we live from victim consciousness. And the more that we live from victim consciousness, the more depressed and anxious and apathetic and disempowered we feel. And the more that we connect with ourselves and the wisdom that is emergent within you, the more empowered you end up feeling, right? So it's this journey of recognizing the things that happen outside of me are just things that I learn how to respond to. And then I want to think a little bit about, well, then what is our response to everything coming at us in the outside world? And we want to go a little bit deeper on that. So we know we want to be unattached to outcome. And we know that our power lies in putting our attention on the things we can control. But it gets a little bit more complicated, doesn't it? Because what if I told you that you have no choice over what you want? Let that sink in for a minute. You have no choice over what you want. Have you ever fallen in love with somebody who's bad for you? Maybe that's just me. Okay. Maybe that's just a very unique part of my life where you sort of fall in love with someone and then you're like, oh, but they're really not good for me in all of these ways, but I want them. Have you ever had this experience? Or I, really want this XYZ and I know it's not good for me. So even in the self-connection realm, it gets a little bit complicated. Do you ever choose a feeling? Generally, no. Generally, your feelings actually emerge, the dance of emergence. Your feelings are just arising inside of you. You're not choosing them, and you pretty much cannot control them. What you can do is suppress them, and you can repress them, or you can amplify them and you can act them out. Like there's things we can do with our feelings once they arise, but we don't really have any control over what we're feeling. And we also don't really have any control over what we're needing. How does that land? Say that? Uncontrolling? I'm out of control. I'm out of control. Yeah. So let me give you some examples, okay, in terms of how I want you to think about this, because we will get into everything that you do have control over, which primarily is your attitude, your response, your attention, your intention, what kind of relationship you want to have with it. That's a place where you get to choose. You get to choose if you want to wake up. You get to choose if you want to do something different. You can choose what your intention is in any given moment. And once you become aware of something, you can even choose, excuse me, I have a little tiny cold, I think, coming in. Or it could just be allergic to the dog, actually, now that I think about it. There was a dog in my house this morning. I think that's really what it probably is. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. You don't have control, whatever. Tell me why you're skeptical. Let's go there.
You said, I think you said, we don't control or choose our feelings or what we want.
Yes.
And for me, there is just one being in here. there's my survival self and my thriving self. For sure, my thriving or my survival self is just machine, just responding to it. But when a feeling arises, the initial thing I definitely don't control, and maybe that's what you're speaking to. But the story I tell myself about anything does change the feelings that get generated.
100%.
Comes up. So that's
Yeah, 100%.
right with you there.
Yeah. And so the story you tell yourself in your survival self, how much control do you think you have over that story?
Well, I'm talking about the story I choose to tell myself from my thriving self.
Great. So let's talk about that. I love that. Thank you. I'm going to build on what you're saying. I agree with everything you're saying when you just build on it and highlight it, because I love that. So think about it like this, and I'm coming. I see you. Some of what I'm saying, I'm speaking a little bit playfully and in a general way about your default, unconscious, on autopilot, programmed, conditioned self. Mostly because that's who's in charge the vast majority of the time. And then we have these moments where we become aware of something, when we wake up to something, when we are able to move into a part of ourselves that is able to observe the default programmed, fearful survival self. The part of you that can watch you is the part of you that has choice. So if you want more choice and co-creation in your life, one of the central practices is strengthening your neurology to be in the track, in the habit of staying in the part of you that is watching, not the part of you that is reacting. The part of you that is reacting is basically showing you your conditioning, your programming, and the sum total of your past experiences and unresolved feelings up until this point in your life. Your default, unaware, unconscious self, who we are going to learn to love and embrace and soothe and welcome, that's who's running most of your reactions during the day. And as you get on this journey of waking up and becoming more conscious, you practice living in the part of you that watches this part of you, this controlling, blaming, fearful part of you. But you stop identifying with that aspect of your existence. Is that making sense? Now, one of the number one things that I see people doing when they start on that journey is they take one look at this unconscious, reactive, controlling, blaming, socialized self, and guess what they do? They blame and shame it. And they reject it. And they judge it. And they other it. And they dehumanize it. And they want to get rid of it. And they want to control it. And they want to pathologize and diagnose and other it. Okay? And that is your very first garden of practice. Before you can go out there and develop relationships with anybody else, the very first person that you will learn how to love is that part of yourself. The very first person that you want to learn how to relax around is this part of yourself. That is the first and primary relationship that you need to tend to. It doesn't help to wake up and judge yourself. That makes it very, very painful, and it generates a lot of internal conflict and resistance. So we'll talk for a moment about what it means to actually love this part of ourselves, but first I want to loop back to you and find out if what you wanted to say is still relevant. And we can go back.
I think you may have passed that particular point, but I think that a lot of our need to control is basically when we look into ourselves, it's about resistance.
Yes. 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 Thank you for bringing that in. That's very beautiful. Oh, I have to do this more often because this is so much richer with all of your phrases and all of your ideas and all of your wisdom. Yes, resistance to life creates a tremendous amount of suffering. A tremendous amount of suffering. So what I'm going to suggest today is that you learn how to get into loving relationship with everything, beginning with yourself. How you develop the courage to just wake up to everything inside of yourself, no matter what you find, and you learn to love it. Every bad habit, you learn to love it. Every bad choice, you learn how to love it. Now, when I'm talking about loving it, I'm not talking about passively thinking that everything is fine and okay. But I am talking about working with life instead of against life. Working with yourself instead of against yourself. Working with other people as they are. That's very advanced practice, I know. Other people as they are, and not through the projection of who you think they should be. Yeah? This is where real power comes from. Now, I can't help but bring in the fact that as I look around all of the news stories that I am hearing in the world today, and I see all of the things happening on a massive scale, that the things that happen on a massive scale are actually representations of what's happening inside of each of us in our own personal relationships all the time. And if you get your imagination stuck on everything out there and over there with those people that are not in your direct circle of influence, you will suffer and you will not be effective. What I would recommend you do instead is look at everything out there, that whatever it is for each of you, you all decide where you stand on that, but you look at the things happening on a global scale and you ask yourself, in what way am I a micro example of that in my own life? In what way does my inner dictator want to take over and have everything my way with no regard to how it affects other people? Where in my life do I believe and do I show up in a way that it's my way or the highway and the rest of you, right? And it may just be as simple as, in your family system, that one person that you just don't want to talk to. That is your training ground. That is your training ground. Because I will tell you, if I cannot do it with this stepbrother, how do I expect them to do it with all of those delegations at that level? If it's difficult for me, here and now, with these fairly low stakes, the only stakes are a little bit of interpersonal conflict, and I'm too scared to do it, how can I expect anybody who is wielding massive armies to be able to do this work? So once again, we come back to, in our own lives, in the relationships that we have control over, first with ourselves and then with the people that we interact with. And what are these practices? What are the things that really support co-creation and dancing with emergence and living from our thriving selves and working with resistance and working with our quote-unquote bad habits? Number one, reminder of what you already know. You get grounded in the part of you that tracks and observes everything, and you surrender to what is happening in the now. You get in the present moment and you surrender to whatever is arising in the now. And let me tell you a quick story about how challenging this was for me recently, but it was a very worthy practice. I recently ran a retreat in Santa Fe, which was an absolutely glorious experience, and I will definitely be doing it again because I had an amazing time. And before I went on the retreat, we started on a Thursday. I knew that in order to be ready psychologically and mentally and emotionally for this retreat, that I would need a bunch of days of alone time and rest before the retreat, so that when I showed up, I had my buckets full. So I decided to fly out to Santa Fe early, and I booked myself a couple of days in a hot spring resort, because I am a Libra with a Cancer moon, and I am very water-based, and I knew that hot water is my safe space, and they had many springs with many different names, like the Iron Pool and the Cliffside Pool and the very unfortunately named Arsenic Pool, which happened to be my favorite. So I was very excited, and I thought, okay, I'm going to leave very early on a Monday morning. I'm going to take the first flight out. Then I get into Santa Fe, then I get my car and I'm going to drive and I'm going to get to the hot spring resort by like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and I'm going to settle in and I'm going to do hot springs. I'm going to have a massage at 5, and then it's a place where you have to have like dinner reservations. You can't just walk in. So I made all my reservations for the 2-3 days before my retreat, and I was set. So Monday morning, I'm so proud of myself for all of this proactive self-care, and I get on my flight here at MSP Airport, and we're all on the flight, and we're about ready to leave, and then the pilot comes on and says, "Oh, folks, sorry, we have a slashed tire, and we need to bring maintenance in to fix the tire, and we're going to be delayed 90 minutes. Now, my connection was a 50-minute connection, so now we're delayed 90 minutes. And I could just feel the irritation rising in me, because, of course, a part of me was like, no, this is my day. I have it planned. I was very intentional. I am very attached to this outcome, that this day go the way that it does, because this is not going to work. And so I sat there and I'm like, okay, relax, just relax. Very, very, very difficult to do, because a part of me, and this is where your observer self is so helpful, because a part of me was very attached to leaving. And then they made this announcement: you can stay on the plane, or you can, you can disembark, and then you have to board again. And I was like, no, I'm getting off, and I'm going to go and find an agent, and then I'm going to quickly change my connecting flight so that I can still get blah, 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 blah. But of course, the other 300 people were doing that. It probably wasn't 300, it was probably 100 people. We're doing the same thing. So now I'm in this long, long line, and I'm standing in the long line with all of these people in front of me, judging them, right? I'm sitting there going, you're using too many words. She doesn't need to know your whole story. It would be much more efficient if you just asked for what you needed instead of complaining. And I'm standing there and I start noticing myself, right? Just because I'm annoyed. So then I'm like, Yvette, just relax. Drop your attachment to outcome. Re-regulate your nervous system. Take some deep breaths. It's not that easy in real life. I hope you all know this. It's one thing when we know these things, right? So I kept relaxing. And so one of the things that helped me was remembering, I chose to believe in that moment, everything is working out the way it's supposed to. And you like traveling, and you like being on the journey, and this is going to be your practice. This is the journey you're on. You thought you were going to be on a different journey, but you're now on this journey. So how are you going to shift your mindset so that this journey can now be enjoyable? And I literally thought to myself, I'm going to use this in a talk, and this is going to be useful to me. At some point, I'm going to repurpose this terrible experience into a way of integrating learning. And suddenly it all became meaningful again. And then when I showed up, I thought, okay, everybody here is annoyed. There are people who are losing their connections to Hawaii, to international. I'm going to be able to get another. So I started looking for the good, which is another practice. In what ways are my needs met? We didn't crash the plane. They caught something that was going to be dangerous. I didn't have to sit on the plane. I was able to get off. They had agents ready to help us rebook flights. They got me on a flight leaving at 4 p.m. from Denver. And of course, then I had to call the spa, and I said, I'm on a delay. And they're like, we'll just move your massage to 8 p.m., which is what they did. And I said, what about my dinner reservations? We'll just here's the menu. We'll have it delivered to your room after your massage. I'm like, great. And it was one of those experiences of moving away from putting my attention on everything that had gone wrong, all of the ways that this day had not gone in the way that I had planned, even though that part of me was still active and alive. Like, I'm not suppressing her, right? I'm not othering her. I hear her. I'm like, yeah, I know, honey. Little hug on the side here. I know, this is really annoying. My little 8-year-old who's throwing a temper tantrum. But she doesn't have to lead the way. But I'm also not rejecting her. Do you see the difference here? I'm not sitting here in conflict with myself. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so annoyed. So now what are we going to do with it? So I get on my flight. We finally take off. We get to Denver. We get on the flight. And I don't know if you've ever flown from Denver to Santa Fe, but it's like a flight of like 20 people. It's a very tiny little plane. And if you don't know this about me, I actually do have a bit of a fear of flying. And so I do a lot of flying and a lot of relaxing my nervous system and working with myself when I'm on a flight. And usually it's some version of making peace with death, just so you know. Literally, that's my central practice to deal with my fear of flying. I'm like, okay, and it will be a quick death, and it will be fast, and it will be absolutely fine, and we're going to be okay, and you are an eternal being, and it's just your body. And so this is bonus material for you today. So I get on, we board the flight, we're going off to Santa Fe, and we are about to pull away, and the pilot comes on and says, sorry folks, our radio system isn't working, and so we need to put in a ticket for maintenance. I did not get to my hot spring resort until 7 p.m. We did finally take off, and then we had incredible turbulence. They're like, oh, we're going to have moderate to severe turbulence all the way. I was like, this day could not be scripted any worse. Except, I can tell that story, but I can also say this. Rental car went quickly. Amazing car. Showed up at the resort. Welcomed immediately. Put into a massage. Had my food delivered. Sat in a hot spring at 10 o'clock at night looking at the stars in New Mexico and looking at the day that I had just been through, and I thought to myself, well, that is not what I had planned, and everything worked out fine. And here I am. And it's all good. And this is about not getting so hung up on thinking things have to go the way that I planned in order for me to be okay, in order for me to have my needs met. So, I can tell the story very differently about all of the ways in which the universe lined up to protect me. I could have been on a flight where we had crashed when we landed. I could have been on a flight where the radio system actually died mid-flight instead of before and got it fixed. Like, there's a million things that could have gone another way. I choose to think of it as all of the ways that I was protected along the way. Okay? Me, and I'm not personal, not in a grandiose way that I somehow have any special need for protection, but that all of us are really held in a universe that is unfolding and that is loving and that is connected. And if we could just let go of this agenda that it has to look the way that we're planning, and we learn how to enjoy and be with everything that is happening. I will tell you, I had more conversations with people on the plane on these 2 flights about there was more connectedness, there was more camaraderie, there were more opportunities for community because we were in something together. And we could choose to be relational and turn to one another for shared experience, for shared humanity, for storytelling, for being with one another's feelings, for being with one another's needs. Or we could all sit tight and irritated and locked up, shaming and blaming and railing at things that we have no control over, right? So that practice, even though we know it in theory, on the ground, it is the choice to relax into what is happening over and over and over again. Now, the other side of that is we don't just relax into what is happening in a passive, nothing matters way. There is still a deep sense of interior guidance that you can tap into. And I think that's a little bit of what we were talking about over here, having a needs consciousness. Really living from needs consciousness in everything that you're doing. And if you don't know what I mean by needs consciousness, I'm going to I know some of you know very well what I mean, but I'll just do a little teaching on it. Every single person on this planet shares the same universal human needs. Domination systems train us to disconnect from our feelings and our needs. One of the most revolutionary things that you can do in your life if you want to change life on this planet is to reclaim your feelings and to reclaim your needs and to begin paying attention to how you are feeling and what you are needing and what every human being around you is feeling and needing in any given moment, and acknowledging that that is part of your interior compass and a deep, deep source of wisdom. So let me give you an example. On that plane, my need was not efficiency. The needs that I was trying to meet had to do with relaxation, had to do with self-connection, had to do with rest. I was able to meet those needs in spite of all of the glitches along the way. I was not dependent on that plane being on time, on not spending 3 hours, additional hours in Denver airport, or showing up at a hot spring at a particular time in order for those needs to get met. When I could stay in connection with the fact that I am looking for rest, rejuvenation, relaxation, I can find ways of meeting those needs right here, right now, regardless of what is going on around me. If I'm not aware of what I'm needing, I don't have access to that, because I make the mistake of thinking that I'm only going to be okay if things go the way that I had planned or the way that I wanted. Is that making sense? And then in terms of your feelings, when I tell you you're not really in charge of what you want or what you're feeling, this is really what I'm talking about. You're going to be hungry. You're going to feel hungry when you need fuel. You're going to feel irritated when you need ease. You're going to feel lonely when you need connection. Your feelings are here to tell you about the state of your needs. It is an invitation to care about yourself, not micromanage yourself. And everybody else's feelings and needs are an invitation for you to care about them, not to control them, not to micromanage them, not to judge them, not to change them. And I want you to imagine for a moment what it might be like if we lived on a planet where instead of chasing the almighty dollar or whatever it is that we're chasing that I don't really understand, the love of power, wanting more and more power, and if we're defining power as access to resources, there are people on this planet right now who are very, very interested in hoarding resources for themselves and nobody else. They're addicted to the chase for power. And that kind of privileging of power over everything else becomes very, very toxic and generates tremendous suffering. But if the only people we care about is me and mine, we are not caring about life on the planet or our communities or sustainability. And that mindset, that very toxic mindset, is poisoning everyone, including the people who are hoarding power. And the alternative, back to what can we do in our own lives, is to replace the love of power with the power of love. This is a phrase that Carolyn Meese uses a lot. We're going to shift from the love of power to the power of love. And in the power of love, we do not control, micromanage, judge, blame, or other one another. We do not try to get control over life in the illusion that we have any wisdom. We instead do the inner work, each one of us, of observing, of witnessing, of tracking, of waking up, of becoming conscious of whatever we're unconscious of. And as we become conscious, we have the practice of loving instead of judging. Whatever you wake up to, you figure out how to love it, not judge it. And part of loving is learning how to use the protective use of force. The protective use of force is when we stop people from doing something that is harmful, that creates suffering. We use force when somebody else is not choosing. If they are committing some kind of harm, we use force to stop them, but it is protective and it is never punitive. And the moment that we have established safety, we bring love to all stakeholders. Whoever you want to label as perpetrator or victim or anything in between, or rescuer if you want to go with the triangle. Whatever the role is for each of the people. And what do I mean by we bring love? What does that mean in practice? You bring a relaxed, regulated nervous system that extends curiosity, understanding, clarity, connection, and empathy to each of the people. We engage in the process of rehumanizing every human. And this incredible dehumanizing and othering that is going on in your own life, in your own heart, in your own family systems, I want to invite you to make a commitment to stop othering people. No more dehumanizing. There is no power in dehumanizing. There is only suffering. Real power comes from helping people heal, learn, grow, and be in community together. And I would say we need a world in which the prime objective is not to hoard power, but to create a world in which all people's needs could be met. For me, this is a much worthier goal to stand behind than the win-lose divisive proposition of good and bad and right and wrong. And I would like to invite you to think about what it might take for you to step out of these dualities, out of these binaries, out of two political systems, for example, and what it's going to mean to really operate from a third way. The third way that has wisdom, the third way that includes a both and, a third way that encourages you to settle your nervous system, enjoy the journey, work with what is. What if all of the conflict going on in your life right now, what if all of the things in your life right now that cause you suffering, this is from a Rilke poem, right? Just wants your love. And what does that actually mean? What does it actually mean for us to bring love to each of these moments? And it starts with a quality of presence. Being willing to be with, name, and sit with whatever is arising in this moment right now. And you're going to find in your own lives that there are things you don't want to sit with. For a long time, for me, it was disappointment. Took me a long time to make peace with disappointment. I would rearrange my life in so many ways that I would never be disappointed. I found it so painful. So when I stopped avoiding disappointment and I began embracing, oh, I'm disappointed. This is what this feels like. There's a willingness to feel life. Oh, I'm scared. This is what it feels like to be scared. I can track the imprint of scared in my body. I can be with my fear. I can love it up. I can soothe it. I can be in relationship with my fear. The moment that I begin doing that, that is an act of love by my definition, fear will no longer rule me. But to your point earlier about resistance, everything that I resist is going to get stronger and is going to exert power over me. So this is an invitation to expand and grow your inner being. Be more identified with what you so beautifully talked about as your thriving self, your conscious self, your loving self, your eternal self, your energetic being, that inner being that has always been with you and always will be, and that I personally believe was here before you came in this incarnation and will probably be here once this vehicle falls apart, right? And of course you all fit in whatever spiritual beliefs fit for you, but for me, we are eternal beings having an experience. And what I believe we're here to do is to learn how to love the experience and not control it. And the paradox is that when we learn how to love, everything changes. Everything changes. But not in a top-down way that I somehow, grandiose little human in this body, knows the outcome. Everything changes because we've changed the dance steps and we're willing to, and I'm just going to pull on some of the things you put in the room earlier, dancing with emergence, being willing to be fully present to what is emerging in me, in you, and not getting scared, being with it, being curious, relaxing my fears, Yeah? Bringing that quality of presence and self-regulation. There's a surrendering. There's no need to wring our hands, although I do quite a lot of it, and look out there at all the tragedies, and then I go, okay, if this world is crumbling, let's say that it's crumbling down into the worst possible outcome, what kind of people do we need to be? What kind of people does that world need if that's what's happening? It needs conscious, loving, strong, regulated people with clarity of purpose. And we're going to need people who hold hands and don't turn on one another and support one another through it and alleviate suffering. And let's say we're in the middle of an amazing shift, an awakening of consciousness. And everything that looks like it's crumbling right now is an old structure falling away because something new is emerging and we are on the precipice of the birth of something new. Let's imagine that that's the case. What kind of people are we going to need in that kind of world? We're going to need loving, grounded, conscious people who hold hands with one another and who move forward together and support one another and do their healing work and do their growth work. So ultimately, regardless of what that story is, who we get to be remains the same. Yeah? Become beings of love. Do your healing work. Learn, grow, find your communities. Don't judge anything you find inside of yourself. You have no bad habits. You have some tragic strategies that are not aligned with your needs. That's it. Okay? You have tragic strategies, they're not aligned with your needs. You're not doing anything bad. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just learning. You're just growing. And you can relax into being a work in process. Okay? Any questions as we close with that today? Or comments? How are you doing? That was a lot of words. Yes.
Just one side comment. The song's fantastic. Your ideas of the world's crumbling,
Mm-hmm.
growing into something. Where does leadership fall?
Where does leadership fall?
Yourself.
For myself, leadership, I believe that leadership is about living in alignment with your inner blueprint and what it is that you are meant to do. And I'll give you an example. I don't really, I'll speak very personally. I have known since I was 3 years old that I'm a teacher. I would line up my stuffed animals and teach them. I would teach the animals. I would try to teach my parents. They didn't like that. I cannot help but teach. And I had, for a lot of my life, a big piece of my life, a lot of judgments about teaching because it's controlling and it's terrible and I don't want to be that. Okay? So a lot of my life is like, I don't want this thing that I cannot help myself from doing. So part of my learning was, what does it really mean for me to teach in a mystical and sacred way? Not in a controlling behavior management way, which I've done a lot of, but what does sacred, reverent, mystical teaching sound like and look like, and how does it need to feel? And I don't have any choice. I didn't come in saying, I mean, maybe, who knows, we could have that discussion another day, but to some degree, that's my blueprint, and there's not much I can do about it. The only thing I can do about it is resist it or live into it. What I would say for each one of you is, you probably have a sense of knowing of your unique gifts and talents, what you are here to do. Some of us are healers, some of us are teachers, some of us are accountants, some of us are architects, some of us are community builders, some of us are psychics, some of us are more prophetic. Some people are about growing seeds and tending to living systems. You will have something that brings you alive. The biggest contribution that you can make on this planet at this time is finding out what that is that you are here to do and doing it. Because when you start living in alignment with what your inner being is prompting in you and stop being afraid of what you're being asked, you know that little voice in you that's like, you should blah, 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 or what if you blah, 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 and you go, no, 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 that's not me. Every time Gary asks me to speak, I'm like, why? That's not me. Like, there's so many better people out there. But I'm like, okay, you're being asked, you're going to say yes. Okay? Even though I actually am quite terrified of public speaking. Okay? So there you go. I have tremendous anxiety when I'm sitting here beforehand going, okay, I don't know. Why am I here? Why do I say yes? And I keep saying yes. And I just want to offer that to you. That's what leadership is. You figure out the things you're being asked to do. You find out what is it that I'm being asked to offer. And if it's any help to any of you, the thing I tell myself all the time is, I get to do this badly. I get to do it badly. I don't expect myself to be good at it, but it is about stepping up and answering the call over and over again, and you go figure out what is the call in your life and live into that. It will bring you personally tremendous joy. And I do believe that the things that bring us tremendous joy are of service to our communities in some way. So how does that land for you?
Oh, it answers me just leadership of self.
Yes. Be your authentic self. Let everything emerge from there. There is so much life energy waiting to be expressed through each one of us. And there's no one of us, it's all of us. Every single one of us needs to bring that forward, I believe. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
What a wonderful, wonderful reminder of what we truly have control over, and that's how we feel, think, what we believe to be true about ourselves and the world around us. And that when we go out into the world and we try and force other people to be as we are, or as we want them, it's really a reflection of something missing within us. So remember that. Come back to self, and your world changes. So this is the time in our service where we ask for your financial support. We are fully funded by your donations. This helps us bring all of these wonderful workshops, programs, these inspiring speakers to come and share their wisdom with us all. So Gary's going to play some music for us, and our friends Carol and Dave will be by with a basket. There's a QR code in there too if you'd like to donate electronically. Thank you.
I release control and surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. I release control and surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. I release control and surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. I release control and surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. I release control and surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. I release control and surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. I release control.
And we'd like to bless the abundance before us. If you'd like to repeat after me, either to yourself or out loud. God's perfect love, flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. So it is. Thank you. And we'll ask Dr. Erasmus to come up and close our circle. So if we want to gather around, Gary, do you think we have enough to go around the whole sanctuary? Yeah, if we can just make a big loop around this middle section here, we're going to grab hands, close our ceremony, close our service, I should say.
Here we go. Here we go. Hi. I'm just going to take a minute and have a look at each of the people in the circle and thank each of you for showing up here this morning. I feel very, very enriched by your presence, each of you. Thank you. And I'm going to end with a blessing by John O'Donohue on presence from his fabulous book that I love. Awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. Have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. Receive encouragement when new frontiers beckon. Respond to the call of your gift and the courage to follow its path. Let the flame of anger free you of all falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame. May anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. Take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. Be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. Happy Sunday. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.